negative reinforcement punishment, when you should use it, when you shouldn't use it. So now I want to talk a little bit about positive reinforcement, reward-based training. When I train a dog to do something for me, I do a lot of reward-based training. I reward the behavior, so the chances of the behavior occurring again go way up. And the great thing about positive reinforcement is that there's no negative side effects. And it's also a lot of fun between you and your dog. And that's really what training should be all about, is that it should be a fun process for you and your dog. And if you're using a lot of negatives and you're yelling and grabbing the dog and rolling him over on his back, that's not a lot of fun. Not fun for you, it's not fun for the dog. But by using reward-based methods, you can teach the dog a lot, and it can be a lot of fun for you and the dog. And the biggest side effect with reward-based training, say using a clicker, is that maybe your timing's a little off. But if your timing's off, all you've done is taught the dog the behavior that you didn't want him to. So for example, let me tell you about a dog that I saw once. And this dog was trained to turn his head when he heard the word sit, because the owner had the clicker, and she had some treats, and the dog, right as she clicked, the dog turned its head. She said sit, the dog turned its head and she clicked. The dog looked back at her, she gave her the reward. And then it happened again. She said sit, the dog turned its head, she clicked, she gave the reward. And this happened about 4 or 5 times, and that's what the dog thought the word sit meant. The dog thought I'm supposed to turn my head to the left and then get the reward. And it's because the owner's timing was a little off. This dog happened to be looking at the dog next to him every time they were working in obedience. So that's not a big deal. There's nothing bad about that. All you have to do is reshape the behavior a little bit or rename the behavior. She could have come up with a different word for the command sit. So that's the great thing about positive reinforcement. And a lot of the negative reinforcement trainers, people that use e-collars and pinch collars, will tell you that that's not training for the real world. That the dog has to have a certain level of correction applied to them in order for them to get consistent out in the real world. All depends on the dog. Dogs have different temperament levels. I've worked and trained dogs using pretty much just reward-based training and gotten excellent results. There's definitely some dogs that I've worked with that I've had to use a little bit of compulsion when we took it to that next level. But for the most part, you can do almost all of your training, your obedience training, with a lot of reward-based training. Again, if you're really interested in this, there's a trainer, Godfrey Dildai. He's a trainer in Florida. He trains for Schutzen, and he does a lot of reward-based training. He does use some compulsion. He does use prong collars, but the 80% of the training is reward-based training. So it's definitely something to check out if you're interested. And that's the great thing, as I said, about positive reinforcement. So in the last video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to find a trainer that's good for you, and questions that you should ask, and different things that you should do before you hire the trainer.